So welcome. We have the honor of introducing Harold Waight today. We are interviewing him for a featured artist event that we will be holding at the gallery 2023. So hopefully Harold will get to come down and spend some time with us and get to know some of the art buyers and collectors around our area. We are super, super excited. So, and if I may, just kind of give a little bit of backstory. Harold and I actually met through a mutual friend. So I just want to say thank you. I truly believe that things happen for a reason. So that mutual friend kind of made this connection. And so I just want to kind of throw that thank you out there as well. So welcome, Harold. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me. I am super excited to be here. I'm super excited about the show, and I'm super excited to be able to share my artwork with the gallery and with you, Shannon. Thank you so much for bringing me on board. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So you are in New York, just outside of New York City, or right in New York City?
I live in Brooklyn, New York City. I've been here for the past 12 years. I've been in New York City primarily when I first moved here. I never stopped working on art, but I was working in fashion for quite some time. And between fashion and art, just juggling both careers. And yeah, I've just been here for 12 years. I love it out here. It's beautiful.
It is beautiful. It's one of the greatest cities on earth, especially for this profession. So,
oh, absolutely.
We absolutely love New York and try to come as often as we can. So I understand that you actually moved to the States at the age of 8. So tell us a little bit about what that was like for you.
So it was very different. I was born in Belize and surrounded by the jungle. You know, growing up, it was a struggle. We grew up in like areas that were high in poverty. I remember I still have pictures where I didn't even have shoes on my feet. One day, my mom ended up saving enough money to move to America. We got our visas, so we moved to America. We moved up to Miami, Florida. And, you know, growing up in Belize, I was always surrounded by nature, which is where I stem a lot of like my abstract pieces from. And I grew up with this attachment towards nature and a love for it, even being in the States, you know, experiencing how nature is now kept not more so around you anymore, but it's contained with all the houses and buildings. You know, you have your parks or you have your museums where they honor nature, but it's not like in Belize where you just walk outside and it's all over the place and it's just attacking you. So moving to the U.S. was definitely a big change in environment. I love it out here. I consider myself an American citizen. I mean, I am a citizen at this point. And it's just allowed me to really look at the world and the way different people interact and meet and with nature as well, you know? Yeah, that's it.
The nature part I absolutely love as well, because you're correct, and especially around our area, because we're just north of Atlanta. A lot of construction, a lot of building, so we actually have to drive a little ways to find anything that looks close to nature. And that is very important because, I mean, as human beings, we need that serenity and that nature, as well as food, water, shelter, anything else. We thrive when we're in nature. So your abstract works, well, let me back up. So in reading your bio and some of your background information, you have a passion for people and some of the needs in our world. That's definitely something you and I share. So a lot of important causes that you try to make a difference in. And with the abstracts, if I'm reading correctly, there's a large purpose for the nature and the global warming and preserving our earth.
Yeah.
So tell us a little more about that in terms of kind of how your art can speak that message.
So basically with my artwork, I wanted to speak to the subconscious mind. So when I'm creating certain pieces, and I showed them to people and I asked them, what do you feel from this? What do you get from this? They say, I feel like a sense of nature. I feel a sense of earth, or I feel a sense of warmth. And then I usually ask, well, how would you go about protecting that? I'm a strong believer that the purpose of art during our time today is now to no longer just reflect the times, but to cause reason to impact change, so we can change the times, so we can see some type of improvement when it comes down to really getting out there. It's not just more so about portraying what's going on. It's about how you're going to inspire other people to really, dive in, go to nonprofit organizations, foundations, to try to do the work. Yeah, because it's like art is great when you're looking at it, but if it's just sitting on a canvas and we're not doing anything, based around it because we have that inspiration, then it's just hanging. And one of the purposes for my work is to inspire people to really go out there, go plant a tree, really inspire people to go out there, invest in protecting land, and invest in really just the environment that we're in. Um, and that's been my sole reason for creating. Prior to even the abstract pieces, I have works that are inspired um, by situations of friends of mine who've had cancer, or who had HIV, or my mom who's fought breast cancer. And I have paintings, topics of interest that educate people on those situations or those conditions, and inspire people to want to do something about it. So when it comes back down to the abstract pieces, that's been my entire purpose around creating it. How am I going to get people involved, want them to get involved? How am I going to inspire them to want to do something about the world we're in?
And that is so important. That is so powerful. So
Thank
powerful.
you. Thank you.
And I love your process, especially asking the feedback and getting just that humanness, just to
Mhm.
include, because many artists by nature, we're more introverted, and we sort of step back into our studios, and we know what our heart is. We know the message we're wanting to kind of get out on that canvas, but it's definitely kind of a solo process. So I love that you ask for feedback and have those conversations, because conversations and talking about things that are important is so powerful just within itself.
Thank you so much. Yeah, one of the things I enjoy is usually when somebody says, "Well, explain this painting to me," and I see their heads kind of turn to the side and their eyes squint, and then I get the aha moment, like, "Oh my gosh, this is connected to this, and this means, oh my, I love that feeling." It's almost like a quick awakening in a moment in time. It's that itself. It's art.
And then the art just sort of takes its own form.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So as a part of that process, do you, if we kind of change gears and go to some of the fundamentals, because I know you have a lot of training, a lot of experience, a lot of education. So as part of your process, do you start out any particular way and then kind of let that evolve in terms of pre-treating your canvas, or do you just start with a raw canvas, or any other media? I'll say canvas just out of habit, but regardless of the media or the the plane that you're working with, do you have a specific process? Do you stand back and just kind of look at it and kind of let it come forth? I don't know if I'm making any sense, but what's that kind of those
No, I understand.
fundamentals?
Absolutely. So for me, usually I make sure all of my canvas is coated with with a white base. I work in layers. So like one of the paintings behind me is called Algae, and basically it's around the rainforest, and it's about 7 to 8 different layers of paint. What I do is I'll start off with the base. I'll think about the idea. What do I want this to feel like? And then I'll move forward that way. Um, I usually end up looking at my colors. I focus on the colors as well to try to make sure that they're complementary to what I want to portray in the art. And and then I just let it take form. I let it take form. It's a lot of freehand movement. Um, I sometimes use brushes, sometimes I don't use brushes, sometimes I dig deep and use a paint palette to create the art as well. I got inspired by one of these reels on Instagram. When I first started my abstract pieces, I got inspired by it's like a video on Instagram where I saw this artist and she just grabbed paint splatter, splattered it on the canvas, and then from that she used a piece of cardboard to kind of create a painting, and it was a portrait. In my head, I said, well, you know what? Why don't I become a little bit more hands-on than just a paintbrush? So whatever I could find my hands on to create what I need to get done, there's no rules about that. So let's just go ahead and get that done. So when it comes down to the abstract pieces, I do use some of my paper. I use my, let me see if I have it with me. Here's the div. So use, I use the sides of my palette sometimes to kind of get the textures that I want. I also use the curves in my palette to actually get the shapes that I want when it comes down to creating my paintings. And then I finish it off with the brush strokes. So I think for me, that's just my unique way of my stamp, my signature stamp when it comes down to creating these individual pieces, which I find that are very particular to my style. Yeah.
Well, that's very interesting. So it sounds like you've just kind of found your style, found your process. And that, I believe, that's where our very personable, that vulnerable piece of us kind of comes from the heart, from our mind, from our soul, out into our work too. And
absolutely.
From an appraiser's standpoint, those small details, it's almost, well, as you said, it's kind of your autograph, a piece of you. So it's very significant to you. So years from now, if appraisers are, appraising your work and, it's worth millions of dollars and someone wants to authenticate it, those details and those very authentic pieces of your process is what's going to set it aside from maybe someone else or another artist.
Thank you. No, I appreciate that. It's funny that you mentioned that, because so one of my professors one time, he was like, what are you doing? I was like, I'm just creating art. And he said, you have to use the paintbrush. He's like, you have to use the paintbrush. And I was like, I'll get to it eventually. But I don't know, I feel like we're at different times as well. So, people are they're finding different ways of doing things. And at the end of the day, what I said is, as long as we're getting the point done, and it's unique to us as an artist, there is no really exact way of, okay, you have to use the paintbrush in order for it to be worth something. When, it's like, as you said, it's unique to the artist. So with that, yeah, it makes me excited to not have seen anything like this technique in a while or anywhere else that I know of anyway. Yeah.
That is absolutely great. So I know you said that you like to think about your colors, right? And make sure those colors are complementary to what the art is about. Do you ever find that people ask you to create art from a home decor standpoint? So, whatever the latest color trends are. And is that difficult? Or do you find that if it's from that home decor perspective, you just kind of have the same process, but go at it from a different mindset? Tell me a little bit about that.
So I'm actually really glad that you asked about that. So coming from, being in fashion for the past 12 years, well, since I've been in New York City, I've been in fashion. And it's allowed me to kind of, having a foundation in art has allowed me to have a very specific eye when it comes down to fashion. And when we think about fashion, we think about textures, we think about, fabrics and how they complement each other, as well as colors. So when it comes down to creating my art pieces, I always think about bringing the outside in, because I know these paintings are going to be in, houses or hotels or, galleries. How do I bring that feeling or that thing that I want to communicate that's outside? How do I bring that in, and how do I make people want to keep it in their homes? Is I do think about colors. And I do think about how the light is going to hit paintings, how that's going to, give that feeling of nature. Like in one of my paintings, I use gold acrylic, and when the light hits it, it kind of gives the feel of the shimmering of the sun rays from, running or walking through the forest. That's what I want it to feel like when my art is hanging in people's homes. I want them to feel like, no, it's not doomsday, but wow, there's so much beauty outside, and I have a piece of that in my home right now. So when I'm creating these paintings, that's what I'm thinking about. Okay, you know, the colors that I'm going to focus on this one. Okay, it's going to be red and it's going to be black, and why? Because it reminds me of lava, and it reminds me of a volcanic explosion, and it reminds me of what happens when that explosion occurs, and what's left after that. You have your sedimentary, you have your metamorphic, your igneous rocks. Like I think that's beautiful nature, the cause and effect of nature. And now you have a piece of that in your home that reminds you of a moment of time, in time of nature. So I'm really glad that you asked that question, because people always say, oh my gosh, your paintings, they look great in a home, or they look great in an environment. And that's because I keep that specific thing in mind when I'm picking my colors or I'm adding textures.
A lot of wisdom in that. A lot of wisdom. Many talents, many talents. And I love that because the fashion industry, whoo, I mean, that's just a beautiful thing too. So I love that, you're kind of, there's this big picture of how it all works, so that it's just beautiful.
It's all, when we really think about it, it's all just a huge painting. I mean, like if you're good in fashion, that you're good with color theory, you're good with textures and matching and silhouettes and patterns. You have to have an eye for that. So when it comes on to art, to add in both, it's just like a big puzzle piece coming together. That's what I find, at least for me.
And the challenge of putting that puzzle together, that's what most of us thrive off of. So
I love it. It's like
oh, me too.
We're Tetris champions.
Well, I am definitely excited to add you to our Tranquility Fine Arts family. We started out a small gallery. We are growing. A lot's coming from Atlanta North. There's just so many good things going on for us, and we are really looking forward to continued growth and expanding and collaborating with fine artists like yourself. So I am so thankful that we got connected. As we kind of finish up, and it's okay if you want to take a second and think about this. So if people are watching this interview 5 years from now, 10 years from now, what would you want them to know? What would you want them to take away and think, wow?
I want them to take away, wow, the world around us is important. Every single day we're getting closer to a world that's not sustainable. And I want them to look at this video, look at these paintings, and be like, wow, this is a moment in time. Again, I love using that saying, a moment in time where this was brought to our attention. What did I do from that moment to where I'm at now to make a difference, or cause impact? So how did I take an idea, take an inspiration from painting and cause movement to it, me as an individual? It's not about what everybody else is doing around, but what am I doing? And that's what I want people to get from not just this video, but basically anything that I create. I find that that's my purpose, to cause change through art. So hopefully I get an opportunity to do that with somebody who's watching this, or somebody who's inspired enough to buy purchase a piece or talk about it. Yeah.
Great. Very well said. Very well said.
Okay.
So is there anything else you would like to add before we finish up?
Well, I do want to say thank you to that friend, that mutual friend, for connecting us. I also want to say thank you so much for supporting, me. And I do know that I stand firmly on so many topics, and I'm so happy that, I'm finally receiving more and more opportunities to really showcase my art, because I wasn't traveling as much. I've had 7 shows here in New York City, very successful shows. But this is actually going to be my first showcasing in Atlanta, and I'm glad that I get to do it at your gallery. I'm super excited about it. I can't stop talking about it, and I can't wait to see our relationship flourish and grow, and the inspiration that we bring to more people. Super excited and grateful for it. So thank you to you as well. That's all I have to add.
Well, thank you.